For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Good evening and welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, as we start, Josh, our 7th season on CJD. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur.
Hello, Dan, and great to be back. Good summer, lots of activity, still lots of sun out there, so all good.
Lucky number 7 for our 7th season, and that should be a fun one. We have a lot of interesting entrepreneurs lined up over the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that. We do take a little break around Christmas time as usual, but we'll be back right until next summer with
right until the end of May, Dan.
With profiles every single week, and this week we'll have Marissa Seidel of National Dispatch Services on the program tonight, so she'll be along very shortly. But first, as usual, a bit of a chat about some of the news we missed over the holidays, and some of which included news from some of our past guests here on today's Entrepreneur, and it caught my eye right away in the news a couple weeks ago. Ungava Gin, which is a delicious product that I continued to drink after we had them on the program. Charles from Domaine Pinnacle, and Domaine Pinnacle sold Ungava Gin to Ontario's Corby Spirit and Wine for $12 million in the last few weeks.
And that's not surprising. You always hear stories about businesses selling off divisions, whether it's Ungava Gin, and it's very recognizable because it's a yellow gin. There's not too many of them around. A recognizable product, won some awards, just like one of our other guests, Pure Vodka. They won some awards. I don't think they've sold yet, but there's no doubt that there is. And the discussion I was having with a couple of entrepreneurs the other day is about growth. And I know with Ungava they sold, but the reality is in any business, entrepreneur, you grow organically or you grow by acquisition/merger. And Corby, there's a certain amount. I mean, they're a huge operation, of course, but there's only so much you can grow organically. To grow beyond that needs those acquisitions, those mergers. So it's out there, it's happening in all types of products and all types of services. And it was great to see one of our past guests be involved in that.
You mentioned Nicolas Duvernois of Pure Vodka, who has been on the program before, and he pops up in the news all the time. He's giving lectures all over the place. He is really becoming a role model for young entrepreneurs, and he's, I think, around 35.
Exactly. Well, I mean, his story is still a great story. And the reality is sometimes you just have to, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of perseverance. And sometimes it's a little bit of luck. And it's a very inspiring story that I recommend anybody that bumps into Nicolas, just take a listen or go to our website, listen to the past show that was on, I think it was a couple of years ago. If you go on our website, flmontreal.com, and go to today's Entrepreneur section, you'll find all our past shows, including the Pure Vodka and the one for Domaine Pinnacle and Ungava Gin with Charles Crawford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's 6 years worth of inspiration on there. Lots of podcasting. If you are an entrepreneur interested in those stories, they're all there on the website. New stories now that we'd like to get into. We talk a lot about e-commerce and how businesses need to modernize and deal with this new reality. And there's one service called Pudo, which hopes to capitalize on our need for all these delivery services now that come with e-commerce.
Well, it's e-commerce. So we all know that it's billions and billions of dollars, $1 trillion industry. People are buying online. It's all a question of convenience. But from a consumer standpoint, it's easy. You click a button, you buy it, and you whatever shipping terms they are, whether it's free shipping, whether you pay for extra, but that actual shipping aspect is really quite complicated and quite tedious for those companies that are shipping their goods. And it's not so much the main part of the longest distance. It's always that last mile. It's always that, yes, I can get it from California to Montreal, the airports, or I can get it from Shanghai to New York. But when it has to get to, Lexington and 60th, then you got to get that last mile or two there. And that's where it's taking up a lot of time and effort and energy, and where entrepreneurs can absolutely capitalize on this. So Pudo, pick up, drop off, hence the name, is really getting these convenience stores to be receptacle of items that people purchase online that they can go to their corner store and say, okay, I wasn't here for the delivery because I'm working during the day. I don't need to go to a FedEx office or UPS or whatever that is, miles and miles away. I can go to the corner store. And I think it's an amazing area that I'm surprised some people didn't pick up on since.
Very smart, and gives other business owners extra revenue too.
Absolutely. There's actually another company that's looking for that. I always say the last mile of shipment, and they're working with drones. We keep talking about drones. Well, there's this other company that's looking on, with the, all these your driverless cars and all that. They're creating a fleet of drones that kind of look like a briefcase, a lunchbox, like a big one, kind of suitcase, that actually will steer itself along sidewalks and up to people's residences or homes and deliver a package there. And of course, communicate with you via your phone.
Wow, that's so cool. I know some pizza chains were testing that out too, delivering pizza by drones. Maybe the drones on the ground anyway might be a bit safer than the ones in the air. But
well, there's a lot of things to bump into.
One of my favorite topics, and I love all these new healthy snacks these days. We have just really great snack food, I feel like. A lot of it is organic and flavors we never experienced before. The snack game is really being elevated.
It's not news, Dan. We have been talking about the health food market or segment or sector for quite a long time, and there's never a shortage of new ideas and new things that come out, and but there's definitely a lack in the marketplace. There's still a need. People are still looking for all natural ingredients. They still want to look at a list of ingredients and understand what it is that they're eating versus the gooer gum and the all these crazy chemical ingredients that some people have read going into it. You can read an all natural list. I think people are definitely would pay a little bit more for it. And there's a couple I read in the post a little while ago. She basically has 4, 5, 6 kids. We're feeding them and trying to find healthy snacks. She was creating something organic. She made everything in-house, and people were like, this is great, and I know what's in it. So she said, you know what? There's a void in the marketplace. There's something, even though of all the new products that are out there, there's still something that was missing, and she just grew a business out of that.
You wanted to mention something that's interesting that's going on in Magog. There's
also, and it also, revolves a little bit around the food, definitely around the food industry. But this is a restaurateur, but that's not just a restaurateur. This is a restaurateur that is really looking at the breadth and depth and verticalness of his business. So not only is it a restaurant in Magog, there's also a farm that they own. They also do catering business. They also do, certain programs to help the community. So this is a food industry or a food sector, food business where they are really reaching out all tentacles to get everything. So it's not just the breadth. It's not just the fact that, they have a restaurant and catering. There's a lot of people do that. But what they are doing is going from that not vegetable garden, but a farm, I don't recall how many acres the farm was, but it was a lot of acres, and maybe 50, that they were growing their own product and they were bringing it to their restaurant and to the other ancillary services that are there. That is vertical. And I think we're going to see a lot more vertical companies, not just in the food, but elsewhere, because everybody's trying to keep all their profit to themselves, and every middleman that products pass through, they all take their cut.
Finally, real quick, this one's pretty interesting. The sharing economy, very big, but you can now share sort of managerial services.
Well, I think the Airbnbs of the world, where it's not really, it's the people with condos, the people that actually can afford it, but they don't always have the time to deal with it. And they'll pay for that service for somebody else to deal with it. So there are services popping up that will help your sharing economy. That will say, okay, we'll take this territory in downtown Montreal or Queens Quay, Toronto, or what have you. And they'll say, okay, we're here. We know that there's a whole bunch of areas that need to be managed because the inventory is you want all the product to be used all the time. That's what the sharing economy comes from. But you can't always trust the people that you're selling to or that are renting. So this kind of also reduces the risk for there.
Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD 800. Coming up, we'll chat with Marissa Seidel of National Dispatch Services, our first profile for our 7th season here on CJAD 800.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller with you for the 7th season, starting tonight, of Today's Entrepreneur. And this evening, Josh, we're joined by Marissa Seidel of National Dispatch Services. Marissa, welcome to Today's Entrepreneur.
Thank you for having me.
So first question is the easiest. Tell us what you do for a living.
So National Dispatch Services is a national facilities maintenance company. We take care of large retail chains across the country, everything from electrical to plumbing, flooring, their HVAC system, which stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and anything else that they may need.
So you're basically the handyman for retail stores, or the handyman company, if you will.
You could say that, amongst a lot of other things. We do project management. We help them. Most of our clients are based out of the United States with stores in Canada. Very unfamiliar with the way things work in Canada. We translate a lot for them in Quebec, especially. And those are the types of projects that we handle for them within Canada. We also have an American sister company and a handyman electrical company in Toronto as well. So it's 3 in 1.
Now, how did you get into this? I mean, did you grow up in construction?
No.
When did this start? Where did this idea come from?
No, my father's a social worker. And my brother
And you didn't want to go into the family business?
I did not, no. And my brother worked for the Alouettes for years. He works with me, and so does my father. So basically, I lived in Vancouver and always knew I wanted to get into business for myself. And a friend of mine's father owned an electrical company, but he himself was not an electrician. And he did work for retailers, and I thought it was very interesting. And I started to do a little bit of research and found that in the United States, it was actually $1 billion industry, but with almost no service providers in Canada that were Canadian. And so essentially, Americans were coming into Canada and subcontracting, Joe the plumber or Fred the electrician, and didn't have any sort of checks or balance because they didn't know what they were talking about. So if an electrician would say, it's going to take me 9 hours to do a job because it takes me this amount of time to travel, the Americans didn't understand. So I found a niche, and that's where it rolled from.
Now, again, you didn't know anything about the construction business or plumbing or electricity, but you saw this void in the marketplace. What is your first step? How do you start this up? How do you get people to know that you're starting this business?
So you learn a lot on your feet, and I think that's true for almost anything you do. But I did a lot of research here when I moved back. So I'm from Montreal, born and raised. I lived in Vancouver for 4 years, where I started the business in 2004. And I took courses. Google was my best friend for many years. I asked questions. I found a network of really reliable contractors that I could trust, that I worked with, that taught me a lot. And many of those contractors still work with me today as subs. You also have to have a certain amount of common sense that you employ when you're talking about construction. So for example, and I just want to be clear that I specialize in commercial. I don't do residential. It's very, very different. So you have to sort of use some common sense. If somebody, will use an electrician again as an example, tells you, it's going to take me 6.5 hours to change 9 light bulbs. Well, if that was your house, would you say, okay? So you have to say, well, no, why is it going to take you 6 hours to change 9 light bulbs, and have them explain it to you? And if, again, you're using common sense, you start to understand the methodology behind it, and you're able to, to navigate.
And of course, they have to trust you, and being a woman in the general contractor industry is kind of tough. So when we come back from the break, maybe we'll explore that challenge that you had to face.
It is a challenge.
Marissa Seidel joins us of National Dispatch Services. This is Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD 800.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur. We're joined by Marissa Seidel of National Dispatch Services. Marissa, you're in a very male-dominated profession, and you also went in there as a pure entrepreneur, not knowing a lot about that kind of business, and learned your way, learned along the way. How did you respond to your entry into the business, and did you have any difficulty? Can you tell us about those first few years?
Yes, I had a lot of difficulty. I even till today. So I mentioned before that my brother and my father work for me. My brother's been with me to many trade shows, and I cannot tell you the amount of times that a prospective client has walked right by me in a booth up to my brother, who's taller than me, and started talking to him about, how can we do business? So we're a niche, as I mentioned, and the trade shows we go to are American trade shows. So when they see Canada, they're very excited because they realize now they've got a Canadian contractor in Canada. They'll just start talking to him about business, and after a few minutes say, we'd really love a sit down. When can we arrange a conversation with the owner? And he'll turn around, walk right up to me and say, meet the owner, Marissa. And you can see in their face the surprise that they're surprised and shocked that a female would be an owner of a construction company. And I've had lots of trouble in the past with contractors that didn't love women sort of telling them what to do, but that's the reality of this business. Contracting is really about following instructions. You can't miss, connecting the wall by an inch. It has to be done properly. You can't sort of screw in the light bulb. You can't almost unclog the toilet. It has to be done very, very methodically, and we're very methodical in what we do. I would feel comfortable saying that a lot of men have issues taking those kind of directives from women.
We're good. Dan and I are good.
Yeah.
No, we take orders
Right.
very well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like where you're sitting right now. I'm just kidding. So we, it's all in the approach. And once the clients have confidence in you, and once your contractors have confidence in you that you know what you're talking about, it really eventually doesn't make a difference. But there are definitely challenges that I had to overcome at the beginning.
To this day, do you think that to this day there's still that, that little hump to get over, maybe with certain people that don't know you yet or don't know the company?
I'll tell you the truth, yes. But we've solved the problem. My brother is responsible for operations. He does a phenomenal job. We couldn't run the company without him, and he handles all the difficult male contractors now. Actually, the truth is, I'm joking, but there is a certain amount of respect after time that the contractors give me, because they understand that at the helm of this incredible multifunctional organization, we've got 26 people working for us in the office. I've got an office in Tampa, Florida. I have my people in Toronto. They understand that at the helm of all of this, the final decision maker is me. And so oftentimes on the operations floor, I'll hear my staff say, do you need me to involve Marissa? And I can almost hear the contractor on the other. No, it's okay. We're good. We'll do it. For the ones that I've been with, there are contractors that remember me. That's, I used to do their job. I used to dispatch the work orders and do the follow-ups, pay the bills as the company grew.
Your reputation precedes you.
Thank you.
Marissa Seidel joins us of National Dispatch Services. On the other side, we'll talk a bit about marketing and human resources and lots more with Marissa.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by FL Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Fuller Landau's Joshua Miller, for our 7th season here on CJAD 800 every Monday night at 7 p.m. And we're joined by Marissa Seidel of National Dispatch Services. And Marissa's story is kind of interesting because Marissa, you didn't have a background in construction. You're obviously, a woman going into a very male-dominated field. A lot of challenges in the early years, but you've built up a great multinational business, essentially. What about getting the word out? How do you get new business?
So at this stage of the game, we get a lot of referrals from our clients for Canadian stores. Clients that in the retail world, retailers talk to each other a lot about best practices and how they can share resources, et cetera, et cetera. In Canada, given that the majority of the properties are all located in the same place, retailers, especially with Canadian locations, talk to each other. And we've established quite a reputation in Canada. So retailers talk to each other. We get a lot of clients like that. We also get clients that go on to other opportunities and take us with them. So that's another really positive way, because it shows that they really appreciated what we did for them at their previous job and take us with them. We go to trade shows, as I mentioned before, 2 major ones, actually one coming up next week in Chicago. And we try our hand at different trade shows, but we've got one that works real well for us. And
do you believe in? So does that mean you believe in trade shows?
Definitely. Face-to-face is always the best.
And in your trade shows, do you just sit behind a booth, or you try to actively go out and recruit and walk along? Like, what's been your style?
So that's a very interesting question, because as I mentioned, the majority of the vendors, that's what we're called in the industry. We're called vendors. The majority of the vendors are American. So at trade shows, they're like sharks. They attack clients in the middle of the hallway, and clients take refuge in our booth because of all the American customers.
It's Canada. We're safe.
Right. That's exactly it. We can only speak to 10% of the people that go to these trade shows. So we have success there.
Do you find that you always get a return on your investment for trade shows, because some of them can be quite pricey, and do you see that return right away? I mean, is it clearly worthwhile all the time?
No. And when it's not, I give it two chances, because you never know. You can hit one client and, your return on investment is incredible. You can get 7 or 8 clients and you still don't make your money back. It really depends on how many locations the store has, the brand has, what their needs are, what trade do they want you for, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, when you're dealing, you started this business from scratch, getting into it. Did you have to deal with, we're talking about general contracting, but actual contracts with all your customers, and getting the legal side of it, and making sure, was that a tough hurdle, or did that something that come relatively naturally? You had good people around you.
So people tell me that I really should have been a lawyer. I have a knack for reading contracts. I understand things in a certain way that I don't think your average layperson does. But I also really believe in surrounding yourself with talent. So I have a good friend in Toronto who's a lawyer who's helped me almost from the beginning. And I have lawyers here, because Quebec, of course, is different and more complicated than any other province.
Well, we are distinct.
Right, of course. So I have one lawyer for outside of Quebec, one lawyer for inside of Quebec. And as far as contracts with my customers are concerned, I sign all their paperwork, but I always tell them that I don't hold them to a contract, because if they don't want to work with me, then I don't really want to work with them. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to do business with me because you feel beholden to a piece of paper. I want you to appreciate the work that we do with you and want to work with us. And as I've said before, the only clients we've ever lost are clients that don't pay their bills. That's it. All my some of my customers go back 10, 12 years.
Now, one of the aspects of your business, we were talking a little bit off air, is rather unique, and also when you're getting into a new business, pricing is an interesting factor, and you're dealing with a lot of sub trades, or different, the electrician and the plumber and all that. How did you determine, first of all, not knowing the business going into it, and developed over the years, what's been your pricing model or theory or practice, without giving away the store?
But that's a trade secret. I'll have to kill you afterwards. No, I'm just kidding. We have a unique model. It's one rate per trade. So what I did was I took an average, basically, of what I thought to be a fair rate, and that's what I charge my clients throughout the whole country. So there's obviously a lot more,
Yes.
It's complicated what goes into determining that price, but that's the basic premise. Keep it simple. And I won't say the second word. The
stupid.
Fourth.
You can say stupid.
I can? Okay, I don't know. It's my first time on the radio. So keep it simple, stupid. If I explain to somebody that in Vancouver it's going to cost us $77.50 for an electrician, and it's also going to cost them that in Halifax, they're able to wrap their mind around what the costs are in the company for their brand for electrical work nationwide. There are formulas that we help them with to establish price points. Budget-wise, they're able to factor in what they think they're going to spend next year based on what they spent this year, and it's been a really big help. I know for a fact that other companies have tried to copy it and have failed. So it's because there's a system to what goes behind it. And
you're working really nationwide across country.
Yes.
We'll talk about Canada. So why do you base in Montreal? You started in Vancouver. Like, where did you end up? What was the path, and why Montreal?
So, the famous saying, the grass is always greener. It's not greener on the other side. This is the best province in the country to live in. This is my favorite city. I lived in Vancouver for 4 years, and while it was a beautiful city, my family was 6,000 kilometers away. My brother got married and had kids, and I wasn't I would not have been part of their life had I not been back. That didn't interest me. My father is here. I don't have a huge family, so the thought of not being around them for important things wasn't interesting to me anymore. So I moved to Toronto. So I was there for 18 months, which I always say is 17 months and 29 days too long. And if someone asks me why, well, if you've been to Toronto, then you know the answer. It's not
At
for
least
me.
compared to Montreal.
Well, it's not for me.
So you mentioned family, and you have family members working in the business. So kind of let's gear into the kind of the human resources part of it. Are you happy that your family
Yes.
is in there? Like, your family obviously means a lot to you.
Yes.
I'm sure you want to say hello to them.
Yes, I do. I also want to say hello to 4 girls that I know stayed up to listen. Hannah, Daba, Rosie, and Sivia. Hello.
Now, working with family, tough,
Yes.
easy,
Yes.
challenges,
Yes.
all of the above.
Yes. So, there are positives and negatives, obviously. We'll start with the benefits, which in my case, and I don't know for other family businesses, though I would hope, I have 2 brilliant minds that are working with me. My father owned his own business for 40 years in Montreal, and he started his business also from scratch. My brother was started as an intern at the Alouettes and worked his way up purely on his skill. So what they bring to the business, my brother specifically, is a corporate mind. Everything was in my head. That's how you have to picture an entrepreneur. All the information was in my head. They would come into my office and say, we're having trouble finding an electrician in Powell River. And I'd say, just call Frank. Here's the number, and tell him that Marissa sent you. And they would be amazed because I knew this information, but you have to get that information out of my head. So my brother got all of that information out of my head and put it on paper and created policies and plans for important things that you need to have when you have staff. Because when it's just 3 people, if you want to take a vacation, go ahead.
It's formal policies. At the beginning, as you say, when you're just a few people, that's it. But when you're 26 people,
Right.
you need some policies and procedures.
And 3 offices.
And 3
so we
offices.
can't have 5 people taking a vacation at once because then the customers don't get serviced. But I'm very big on not being a company where you have to fill out an XJ22 form for a pen. I will never be that.
So how do you find your people between your contractors and the people that work with you? Like, what are the criteria? How do you find them? How do you train them?
My
Just
staff
quickly, yeah.
at the office. So I'll also say that I do happen to have some of the best staff around. They work hard. They are dedicated. They care about the company, and it's an amazing team. And we've had this team in place, I'd say now, for a little bit over 4 months, where we lost some people, then some people came back. We had some empty spaces. We couldn't find quite the right match, and we finally did. And there's a little bit of everything. First of all, we give them all basic construction training so that they have enough information to be able to have a coherent conversation with the store with regards to the problem, understanding that the store probably doesn't even themselves know what the problem is, and the contractor who's frustrated because he knows that the store doesn't know what they're talking about and wants to give us the information. So the staff are trained in that. I have a trainer, Sean, who works with all new hires and works really hard with them to make sure that they understand the systems we use. We have 7 different software systems that we use, which all the clients use, which we have to then fuse into our one system. Our team leader, Brandon, works with all the staff to make sure that what we can't supervise specifically, they're taking care of, and the clients love it.
So it's really a lot of knowledge to impart,
Yes.
and it takes a lot of time and effort
Yes.
and energy. I know there's so much more that we can talk about, Dan. We're coming up to the next break, and as we're talking about family, and of course, nobody likes to. I have to bring up taxes sometimes. Nobody really likes to pay a lot of taxes, and certainly with family members, there are ways that you can income split. So we're going to talk about that when we come back after the break.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people, Dan Delmar and FL Fuller Landau's Josh Miller with you for the 7th season, starting tonight, of Today's Entrepreneur here on CJAD. And we'll have Marissa Seidel's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in a few minutes. But first, Nick Moratis joins us, tax partner at FL. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Hi there.
So let's talk about income splitting. This was actually a really hot issue in the last federal election. And so the big question I think that a lot of people have is, can you still do it?
Well, that's it's been the question all year, especially with the high tax rates going up to past 53% on income. There's been a lot of people looking to say, well, what do I do to move the income around amongst the family members in a manner that is legal? So there's some basic planning that can be done for entrepreneurs who have companies. We really got to take a hard look at using family trust to own shares of one's business. The family trust does provide that opportunity to income split amongst family members, which be spouse, children over 18 years of age. Could be with extended family members if the relationship is there. It's an alternative to necessarily paying salaries to family members. And in the old days, if what some people used to do, I'm not saying everybody, is to pay salaries to family members who have never set foot in the office or the plant.
But that can be challenged, I gather.
That will be challenged and reversed, and the penalties associated with it is horrible. However, paying a dividend to a family member who has never set foot in the plant or the office is perfectly legal, because that's what an investment income would be allowed.
But as long as they're a shareholder, like they're deserving of it, and you want to give them the money.
That's right.
Once it's in their name, it's in their name.
Right.
One of the things with income splitting is, and it's not to say that I'm going to give say $1 to say my spouse and not give her that dollar and expect her to pay the taxes and the government to be okay with that. That's not necessarily the way it would work.
But you would welcome the gift of the dollar right back to you.
You could try that. I'm not suggesting that if you have a reason why it should be paid back to you because you fronted some expenses and you're getting a reimbursement, then that's fine and that's perfectly normal. But if it is to give $1 to a spouse and then you keep the dollar for yourself, the government can, upon review, simply tax you and not the spouse. So that family trust is a vehicle that's there. But not all of us have businesses to use, so what else can we do? And right now it's still working and still something that should be considered for those who do have cash. If one spouse, if the wife has all the cash and the husband doesn't, is loans. If the wife loans the husband money, and so that the husband can reinvest the money, what we end up happening is the following. If all you did is lend the money, the government will say, well, fine, we're going to take all the money that the husband earned and tax it back to the wife. So that doesn't quite work. But what if the wife lent the money to the husband, prepared a short agreement that says, I'm lending you the money, and charges you a minimum rate, which let's say is the prescribed rate here in Canada, which currently is 1%. Well, the husband will pay that 1% back to the wife, but he gets to be taxed on all his investment income. So if, let's say, there's $1 million going between the spouses, and let's say you invest in bank stocks that seem to be paying 3 to 4% dividend rates these days, the husband is going to be getting $30,000 to $40,000 of dividend income. He will have to pay $10,000, which is 1% on the million, to his wife and actually make the check out to her before the end of January of every single year. And he pays tax on the difference. If his tax rate is very low, you've just finished saving between, say, a high income spouse at 50-something% to a lower income spouse at about 30-something%. That 20 points on that adds up. And this is not a very complicated scheme.
More with Nick on income splitting and the one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur from Marissa Seidel in just a moment.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
We'll have Marissa's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in a moment. But first, Nick Moraitis, tax partner at FL, discussing income splitting. And the short answer, Josh, is I guess, yes, there are still ways you can still do it.
Still ways you can do it as long as you have people to split with. So, Nick, there might be one or two other smaller ways that
is very important, because and the key word was family members. And if you don't have a family, you
close
don't want
friends,
to,
professionals,
or your favorite tax accountant, but that doesn't work either. If you don't have the family members and you're not prepared to give up the cash towards them, then income splitting doesn't have the same impact. Other ideas, you don't want to have a trust. Your family members do not have shares. You can consider lending money to your family members through your corporation. Now that generally, Josh, as you know, for us it sends us shivers because it's a no-no and we have to pay back the loans. But what if you don't pay back the loans and a lower income family member is now receiving a benefit and he will be paying tax, or maybe not that much tax as compared to you, but the cash has left the company and gone to the family member. That's another way of splitting income. An easy way, which is the registered education savings plans for children's education, because basically you're taking your capital, putting it into an RESP, generating tax-deferred income in that RESP, and then all the income that's been earned by the RESP plus the grants that the governments have given you will be taxed in the child's hand when they start school and they're not earning any income. You can always get the capital back into your pocket. So that's another method of income splitting. I could go on, but
no, I listen. Nick,
the
I
idea,
think there's...
a lot of the idea is if you need $500,000 to live on, or $300,000-$400,000 to live on, you're trying to spread that income around to the other family members to use up the graduated tax rates, and it could be a 10-15 point saving on all this money. That's basically the plan.
And if not, then you'll pay your millions of dollars.
That's
and
right.
be happy you pay $1 million in taxes, because it means you've earned at least
Exactly.
two. So as we come to the end of our first show of the 7th season, as Dan has mentioned once or twice or 7 times,
It's impressive.
I think
Yes,
it's
it is,
great.
and I'm honored to be part of
Does
it.
it happen every day in radio?
It does
So
not.
wow.
What, Marissa Seidel,
Yes.
National Dispatch Services, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
Be honest, have integrity, be true to your word, and because your word is your bond.
And, of the many things that we hear over the years, Dan, while people embody that, they don't always say it. They don't always give that as a piece of advice. They always say, love what you do and do that, but be real, be genuine, be true to your word.
Be true to your word.
I think that will likely come back in spades. So thank you very much, Marissa.
Thank you for having me.
Marissa Seidel of National Dispatch Services. Thanks, Marissa, and thanks to Nick Moratis, of course, tax partner at FL. Next week on the program, we'll do something that's a bit more in my expertise, PR, not so much manual labor. And we'll have Priya Chopra from One Milk, Two Sugars PR in the program next week. And back every Monday night at 7 p.m. here on CJAD 800 for today's entrepreneur. The Exchange with Dave Kaufman and Bugs Burnett is next. Have a good night.